Hey world, being willing to come back to another video. I'm gonna have to take a little time out so I can just kind of view the landscape of what's going on. And as you can tell, there are many diversions being perpetrated in the media, on social media, to keep us diverted from what's really going on. And like I say, it's with this last police shooting, you just gotta ask yourself, you know what I mean? There has to be, and like I said, this isn't something new. If you're my age, in my age group, like I said, I'm 52 years old, and I'm gonna tell you right now. Well, okay, I don't want to be presumptuous. I'll be 52 this year, and I'm gonna tell you right now. Since the Rodney King videotape debacle, I think that was the trial run. The Rodney King video debacle, and if you notice, all these videos of these police shootings, all these videos, it's never definitive initially. Okay, even all the way back to Rodney King, that was a UFO photo, UFO video. Because if you notice, I say UFO because anytime they show you a picture of Bigfoot or UFOs, which I don't understand why people think that a UFO is, the acronym stands for unidentified flying object. It's man-made. So just because it's a UFO, what it is you've been programmed to automatically think that if it's a UFO, it's from outer space, even though you have no proof of outer space. Even though if you're biblically inclined, you know there's no such thing as outer space. Just if you're biblically inclined and you've read Genesis and you're a so-called Christian or of any religious doctrine. I mean, unless I'm wrong, can someone tell me in which biblical scriptures do they mention Mars? Do they mention Venus, Pluto, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus? Where do they mention these planets? And how can we not make the connection between the names of planets and the names of demigods and deities worshipped by the Romans and Greeks? And you don't have any definitive proof. Remember, when you only rely on your senses, your eyes, your ears, your nose, your touch, your feel, your taste, it can be distorted. I mean, if you don't rely on your sixth sense, then you are easily distorted, easily programmed. I mean, think about it. The 4 essential things necessary for this existence: food, water, sleep, and shelter. That's it. From a standpoint of just living in this existence. Okay? When you start talking about existential and mystical, then you start talking about love, emotions. That's innate. But what you can control in reference to what the Most High blessed us with is an earth that provides us with anything and everything we possibly need to sustain. Thank you guys for subscribing to the videos and to the channel and liking the videos. I really appreciate it. I want you to kind of come back and just kind of, because it's really interesting when you see the type of diversions going on, and we get so inundated on all of this stuff that they throw at us that we forget to follow the sixth sense. Okay? Your taste buds can be distorted by artificial flavors and preservatives. Okay? Your vision, your eyes can be distorted because, I mean, they tell you that space exists and you look up in the sky and all you ever seen in your entire life with your eyes have been the sun and the moon. Okay? So we know that senses have been distorted. We know that once your senses are distorted, then you basically fall for anything because you're basically programmed. Once again, food, shelter, water, and sleep. They're all, pretty much manipulated by those that run this country, run this world. You don't grow your own food. Okay? You don't provide yourself with your own water. And your sleep is basically desecrated by programming, the television, social media. So your sleep patterns are all off. And then, of course, shelter. I mean, do I have to say anything more? The homeless. So we know that we have no control over the 4 essential elements necessary for life in this existence. And that's why it's important that the love aspect is so important. And when you take the love aspect out of it, then these people can control those 4 main elements. Because with love, then we share those 4 main elements with everybody. But they call that communism and socialism. That's man-made. Everything that you can touch that you have to pay for is man-made. And then if it's not man-made, it's controlled by man. And so when you talk about these last 2 weeks, family, you had all these shootings in the last, couple of weeks in New York and Chicago. They mention all the shootings, but they don't mention any arrests. Now, I don't know if you guys watch Forensic Files and Cold Case Files and, investigative, Discovery Channel, the ID Channel. I mean, all of these particular shows show violent crimes, okay? Shootings, murders, all kind of stuff, that forensics and all that kind of stuff, they find the killer. You trying to tell me no one is found guilty in Chicago and New York with all these shootings? And then you have in the last, 4 or 5 months, you had like 4 or 5, so-called African Americans killed and shot by police officers. And we protest about that. I'm going to be honest with you, to the family in Portland and Seattle and Wisconsin and, South Carolina, all these places where the cops are shooting and killing Afro-melanated people. To the, people that are out there protesting, why not go protest in front of the police commissioner's house or the mayor's or the city councilman's house? Because remember, none of this is going to change without policy change. And so this whole notion of protesting tells you how disingenuous whoever's organizing this movement is. And I hate that they put Black Lives Matter as the culprit of all this stuff when you look at the people that's out there, majority of them are not black. Okay? So that's a diversion. Last week you had the Democratic National Convention, a whole week of diversions. This week you had a Republican National Convention, a whole week of diversions. But no one is talking about the contaminated water, because in New York they got contaminated water. In Lansing, not Lansing, but some family helped me, not Lansing. But it's a city in Michigan where the water has been tainted and contaminated for years. And nobody's done anything about it. They don't even talk about it. And they're talking about the riots in Wisconsin. But what about the riots and the looting and all the kind of stuff that was in Portland and Seattle? Did they just forget about that? Oh, that's just cool in the game now, huh? You know what I'm saying? So they move from one diversion to the next. It's organized chaos. Family, look deep inside yourself. Pay yourself first. And be prepared for this nonsense, because it's cyclical and they have to do it. I mean, anytime they can tell you that we $21 trillion in debt, then you got to know this country's bankrupt. And so everything that they're giving us and telling us is fraud. So we're going to protest. And a lot of you family members that lose your home through evictions and your credit cards and your mortgages and your car notes and insurance and all that kind of stuff, you're having problems paying it because they want to let you work. To me, we protesting to the wrong people. Steve Mnuchin, the U.S. Secretary. Trump, the president. Nancy Pelosi over the Democratic Party. Mitch McConnell over the Republican Party of the Senate. Then you have the Supreme Court justices. Okay? You have these individuals that make the laws that can change things tomorrow. But we looting and rioting in our own neighborhoods. I promise you it's not the people in the neighborhoods. So that tells you right there that it's disingenuous. Because if people really want to change, they would protest in front of the homes. Why go in front of a couple's home where they have to come out with their guns? Right? They don't make any laws. The people should be protesting. And if you're going to protest, those that make decisions, not those that, are following the same so-called laws and privileges that you are. All right? So like I say, family, the diversion is strong. You still haven't received a stimulus check. You still haven't received any unemployment assistance. You still haven't received any type of moratorium on evictions. But then the governor in Texas wants to fire a teacher because of a lesson that the teacher presented to 8th graders. And like I said, as a teacher, it's something that I wouldn't do, okay? But in this particular landscape, a lot of people have their own ulterior motives for getting their point across, because when it's a land of freedom of speech, allegedly, you feel like you have a platform to express yourself, but you have to do it in the proper fashion. Now, check this out. Governor Abbott, the governor of Texas, went to Twitter to ask for the firing of a teacher who compared the police officer's actions of killing, George Ford, knees on the neck, compared that to KKK and former slave owners. And there was a cartoon caption showing a police officer on the neck of a black person, a KKK member on the neck of a black person, and a former slave owner on the neck of a black person. And I guess the whole lesson was, what's the difference between the police officers and KKK members and former slave owners? Now, ask yourself this. That's not something I would ever teach, because I know, for the most part, police officers don't have that in them to treat everyone like that. There are individuals in the police department that do that. And so that's why I say it is something that has to be changed for policy. It's not, you can't be just, reprimanding certain officers that do this. No, they have to be strict consequences for something like this. They have to be treated like civilians. If you kill someone, take the life of someone, you automatically go to prison. You have manslaughter, second-degree murder, all these different, under the law. It needs to be addressed. And see, I promise you, if every police officer that committed these type of crimes, because that's what they are, crimes, received the same treatment that civilians received, there wouldn't be an uproar, because the policy would be like, anybody that does that, you're going to get the same treatment as everybody else. That's cool. But to not address it, universally, then that can cause some problems. Okay? So comparing police officers to KKK members and former slave owners, I don't agree with that. Okay? But I do agree with the actions that a lot of these police officers have taken are similar to the actions of KKK members and former slave owners. Now, Governor Abbott, I understand, that. But it would seem like you would have more things on your plate to concern yourself with than a teacher teaching a particular subject. You have homeless people in Austin right now, and it's 100, 102 degrees outside, and you got many homeless people under the bridges. You would think that would take precedent over you tweeting that you think a teacher should be fired. A teacher. You're asking for the firing of a teacher because of a lesson he taught, or she taught, I don't know who it was, about comparing police officers' actions with KKK members and former slave owners. Now, we know that those KKK members and former slave owners had the same type of negative actions toward Afro-melanated people that some of these officers did. Not all officers. But if you don't want that type of stuff being, taught in schools, or you don't want that type of rhetoric, then you guys, and I'm talking to the media, why do you show it? There need to be some equality. If every time we see a police officer killing someone, a civilian, it's a person of color, forget that person of color stuff. It's a so-called black or Afro-melanated individual. What do you expect? Let's keep it real. All right? So, family, make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Pay yourself first. In the meantime, between time, may the Most High Society bring you joy. And being with us out at 5,000.